Hello there, welcome to today's edition of Editorials here, broadcasting from Canada. My name is Sandra Asante. Today, Ethiopia's problem aren't post-colonial. That's what we'll be looking at. I'll take a quick commercial break. Stay tuned. You're welcome back from the break. The country is seen on the verge of falling apart. The recent defeat of Ethiopian government forces at the hands of the forces in Tigray in the country's north has not ended the conflict that has threatened to tear Ethiopia apart. Rather, it has opened a veritable Pandora's box of responsibility and possibility regarding where Ethiopia is headed next. Much will depend on whether a ceasefire can be negotiated and if food can get through the hundreds of thousands of potential famine victims. But much will also depend on how the outcome of the war in Tigray impacts the country's wider politics. That's because the embattled province of Tigray is a bellwether of Ethiopia's very destiny. To understand why it is necessary to explore Ethiopia as a geographical, cultural, and political concept in all its considerable uniqueness. Ethiopia is wondrously indefinable. It is an outpost of Middle Eastern and Semitic civilization, dislodged on the continent of Africa, as historically involved in the affairs of Yemen and Saudi Arabia, as with those of its African neighbors, and with its languages of the northern highlands related to Hebrew and Arabic. Ethiopia's monophysite Christianity is redolent of both indigenous cults and Greek Orthodoxy. Ethiopian Orthodoxy represents the second oldest official Christian church in the world after Anemias, even as it has linked with Judaism. Ethiopia is more than a state, not less than one. It is not a vague and flimsy geographical expression like Libya and Iraq, whose identities for too long depended on inclusion within the Italian and Ottoman empires. There has never been anything artificial about Ethiopia. In fact, it has long been an empire in its own right, officially until the overthrow of Emperor Haile Selassie in 1974, and unofficially since, with around 80 ethnic groups within its domain. Given its sprawling and unruly landscape of nationalities, Ethiopian politics and history can be compared with the politics and history of Yugoslavia and Russia. Comparisons with other places in Africa are almost never made, except for an occupation of a few years of Mussolini's Italy. Ethiopia was never formally colonized by Europeans. It is definitely not post-colonial. If Ethiopia is Yugoslavia, its Joseph Broz Tito was Meles Zenawi, who ruled Ethiopia from 1991 until his death in 2012 and was arguably the most adult Ethiopian leader in modern history. He matured from a guerrilla leader into a statesman and had his first politically emerged in the 1980s as the leader of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, whose social and political cohesion has borne similarities with the Viet Cong and the Israelis of the Palmach and Hangana era. The Tigrayan elites essentially ran Ethiopia for decades under Meles and his successor Haile Mariam Desalegn prior to Abiy Ahmed's emergence in 2018. Meles was a minority Tigrayan just as Tito was a minority Croat and Slovene. The majority Serbs in Ethiopia's era are the Amharas, who have wanted to use Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and ethnic Oromo to take back Ethiopia, a top Ethiopia expert in a sensitive diplomatic position about the situation, the current situation. But both the Orthodox Serb and the Orthodox Amharas have felt themselves to be aggrieved parties entitled The majority Serbs in Ethiopia's case are the Amharas, who have wanted to use Abiy Ahmed, an ethnic Oromo, to take back Ethiopia, a top Ethiopian expert in a sensitive diplomatic position told about the current situation. Both the Orthodox Serbs and the Orthodox Amharas have felt themselves to be aggrieved parties, entitled to even more power. Yugoslavia descended into half a dozen or more pieces. Ethiopia could be much more of a mess. On a recent visit to Addis Ababa, I also kept hearing the current situation compared with Russia from the late terrorist period through the Bolshevik Revolution to the present. In this module, the Shiwa-King Menelik II's conquest of Ethiopia in the late 19th century. In this module, the Shiwa-King Menelik II's conquest of Ethiopia in the late 19th century and the subsequent expansion of royal territory throughout the large parts of the Horn of Africa, in addition to the Africanizing this hitherto Middle Eastern imperial kingdom, bore similarities with the Tsarist conquest throughout the flank part of the ethnically varied Caucasus and Central Asia. The overthrown murder of Ethiopia's last emperor, Haile Selassie, by the Marxist military leader Mengistu Haile Mariam bore similarities to the overthrow of the murder of the Russian royal family by the Bolsheviks. The famine of the mid-1980s, which was more a feature of the policies of Mengistu than of drought, bore similarities to the famine inflicted on Ukraine by Stalin. Following the strong rules of Mengistu and Meles, Haile Mariam's tenure as leader of Ethiopia from 2012 to 2018 proved to be short-lived, weak, and chaotic in the mold of Russia's Boris Yeltsin, while Abiy, the erstwhile darling of the West, has brought back strong rule with his hand on an impressive imperial-like state. We don't know how much is true that is, but wielding information and disinformation coupled with the use of the security service as a means of postmodern control. To compare him with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, even with vast human rights abuses associated with the war in Tigray, is certainly a stretch. Yet there was an element of Russian leader Mikhail Gorbachev, glasnost, and perestroika in Abiy's first year. Then there has been Ethiopia's share economic growth over the last decade, approaching and occasionally reaching double digits annually, leaving much of the rest of Africa behind. The whole population has been in ferment as quiet revolution of rising expectations has set in. This has been a backdrop to the current conflict. If economic growth simply led to peace and stability, World War I, which occurred at the climax of the industrial age in Europe, would never have happened. Ethiopia's very identity, is it an empire, a loose multinational federation, or a centrally controlled state? Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Sandra Asante. I'll see you some other time.